Hello, welcome back to Film Noir Friday Night Review. This is Cody in the cinema, and today I'm talking about one of the all-time classics, The Asphalt Jungle, directed by John Huston. And in this one, we have a high-living lawyer, Lonzo Heinrich, and this guy named Doc, who's just out of the joint, and they're trying to put together a big heist. They need someone who can crack a safe, a driver, and what the film affectionately calls a hoodlum. Because hoodlums, they can do the dirty work, all right? And the movie's about how that develops, the heist itself, and the inevitable aftermath. So Sterling Hayden plays this guy named Dix Hanley, and almost immediately into the picture, he's arrested, and we don't really get a good look at him in those first few minutes. Huston chooses to keep the camera at an angle from him. It's lots of long shots and darkness and film noir stuff. And eventually we do learn more about him, but there's this, as for this heist, there's this information that passes through various hands to set these things up. And we learn right away what kind of movie, what kind of situation we're in for. We are in for a world in which violence is how action takes place. Violence is the catalyst for everything. Early on in the movie, this truck driver comes into a bar, and he starts talking about how he just runs over kitties. Yeah, he runs over kitty cats. And the barkeep's like, if I ever see you run over a cat, I'll kick your teeth out. So he kicks him out. There's a cat that's just eating food on the counter next to Sterling Hayden's character, and then those two guys start talking about stuff in the movie. And I mean, right away, violence is how we get people to do what we want them to do. Even with the camera. One of the early shots is a baby in a cradle, and the camera's menacing over the baby. Even the camera at times can be threatening. And so, as far as Sterling Hayden's character, this is what's said. So someone talks about the hoodlums, and he says, okay, violence is all these people know, They are, unfortunately, necessary toward the crime that we're trying to commit. And one thing we learn throughout this picture is that sometimes the people who seem like they might be more intelligent aren't, and the people who maybe you don't think are as quick or whatever, they actually are. And it kind of works really well with this double crossing that goes on. Like all great film noirs, there's plenty of double crossing. But alongside this violence and this double crossing and this brashness, there is this quiet, gentlemanly sense of order that I think, 20 years later, The Godfather played on, because it was famous for that. And if you haven't seen this movie and you're a Marilyn Monroe fan, you actually do just have to watch this movie because this was her breakout role. And there's one of the first scenes with her, there's a light fixture to the left, there's a lampshade in the foreground, and she sort of approaches the frame, and the way that Huston shoots that and then watching her sort of whiz around, he knows the actress he has. He knows what he's got there, and he uses her talents. And for the little bit of screen time she does have, she really is a show stealer. I talked about the double crossing in this movie. It's way more believable and less contrived than it is in some other movies, especially film noirs, where you kind of expect that sort of thing. It just sort of comes as a natural consequence of the plot. Now, when we're in the part of the film where they do pull off the heist, that is where the genre elements truly shine. The black, the white works well there with the buildings and so forth. And then when we do get a lot of light, it's around valuable objects. real good photography, real good cinematography. And it's something else I noticed when I was rewatching this again. I've seen this picture a few times. Like I don't know why, but I kept paying attention to like individual objects more. You know, like a passport or a hat or a drink or anything that the characters had. I just paid a lot of attention to. For those of us that aren't into organized crime, so there's a lesson here to take from this picture, and that sometimes events in life can connect in ways that we just flat out don't expect. And we've all had that happen in our lives where an event A, an event B happens and you don't see any connection, and all of a sudden your life has changed because A and B have a relationship that you did not expect. And this film does a good job of showing how random and unpredictable life can be. It's entertaining. It's aged remarkably well. There's a lot of old school tough guy talk, but it's kind of endearing, which I really like. And as I said, Sterling Hayden is in this picture and he gives a great performance. He's such a good actor. I mean, he's like the policeman in The Godfather is probably his most famous role. But he was also in Stanley Kubrick's The Killing. If you haven't seen that picture, and some other good ones, how could I forget? Dr. Strangelove. The Precious Bodily Fluids. Yeah, that guy. So you got to see it if you haven't. Classic film noir and a great one for a Friday night. What are your thoughts on the picture if you've seen it? Let me know in the comments below. Hey, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time on Cody in the Cinema.